Sometimes a simple act of kindness can lead you down a rabbit hole, or in this case, maybe a squirrel hole. Today, we're diving into a story that starts with one person just trying to help a struggling animal, but it spirals into this really complex and emotional journey about rules, compassion, and what it actually means to do the right thing. Okay, let's get into it.
So, we're jumping right into a moment of pure conflict here. This is what our rescuer yelled, not because they were fighting the animal, but because they were fighting a person who wanted to end the creature's life right then and there. It's a moment that just perfectly captures that raw, protective instinct that kicked this whole saga off. All right, so let's set the scene. Our story begins in Oregon. A local resident is going about their day when they spot an adult Eastern Fox Squirrel. But this wasn't your typical, bushy-tailed squirrel you see in the park. This one was in obvious, serious trouble.
And this is exactly why they couldn't just walk away. Picture this. The poor thing was running in circles, its head was tilted to one side, and it kept falling over again and again. It was just this heartbreaking sight of clear neurological distress, an animal in a state of absolute crisis.
So as the rescue was trying to help, they hit their first major roadblock. A kind stranger actually stopped and offered a basket and towels, which is great. But her son, he had a very different idea. He pulls out a pocket knife and suggests a much quicker, much harsher solution. Our rescuer literally had to intervene to stand their ground for this creature that couldn't defend itself. After finally getting the squirrel secured, the rescuer did what pretty much any of us would do. They took it straight to the experts at a local wildlife rehabilitation center, just hoping for a miracle. But what they found there was, well, it was not what they expected at all.
Can you imagine that feeling of relief? You've just navigated this super tense situation. You've got this tiny, fragile life in your care, and you're finally handing it over to people who know exactly what they're doing. There's this huge sense of hope, right? That everything is finally going to be okay.
Yeah, that hope didn't last long. The news from the center wasn't just bad, it was a complete and total shock. A real gut punch that just changed the entire narrative of this rescue.
And the reason? It all came down to a single devastating word: invasive. The squirrel was an Eastern Fox Squirrel, which is considered an invasive species in Oregon. And because of that label, state regulations required the center to euthanize it. The decision had nothing to do with its health or its chances of survival. It was all about policy.
And this is the part that just feels awful. The rescuer says they weren't told this up front. They signed the paperwork thinking they were saving the squirrel, only to find out they had basically just handed it over to be euthanized, not for mercy, but because it was classified as a nuisance. It completely reframed the whole thing from an act of compassion to just unwitting compliance. So when the rescuers shared this heartbreaking story online, it just exploded. It really tapped into this core conflict that a lot of people feel, right? That clash between our individual impulse to just be kind and the broad, impersonal rules that govern our world.
And this really gets to the heart of it. On one side, you have that emotional, human perspective. This is a living creature, it's suffering. And hey, these are the squirrels I see every day. But on the other side, you've got the detached ecological view. We have to protect native ecosystems, and state regulations are there for a reason, to prevent the harm caused by non-native species.
This comment from the online discussion really nails the frustration that so many people were feeling. To a lot of folks, a species that's been around for nearly a century feels native. The policy just felt totally out of touch with the reality people see in their own backyards.
And the debate even got into the nitty-gritty of the language itself. Some people argued that calling a species invasive is a really loaded term. It kind of puts all the blame on the animal for a situation that, let's be honest, humans created in the first place. A word like introduced just feels more neutral, less accusatory.
Okay, so with all this emotion flying around, what is the actual science behind the policy? Why is the Eastern Fox Squirrel considered such a problem in Oregon? Let's take a look.
First off, this isn't something that just happened. We're talking way back in the 1920s when these squirrels were first brought to Oregon. They adapted incredibly well, especially to cities and suburbs, and their populations just exploded. Today, for a lot of people, they are the only squirrels they ever see, precisely because they've been so successful. But here's the thing, their success comes at a cost.
According to research from Oregon State University, they directly compete with the native western gray squirrels for things like acorns and places to build nests. They're just better at thriving around us humans, which pushes the native species out. And to make things worse, they can sometimes carry a virus that's deadly to the native squirrels, which threatens the local biodiversity even more.
So you've got this heartbreaking outcome and all this complicated science, but then something really beautiful happened. The online community didn't just debate policy, they totally rallied around the rescuer.
The messages that poured in were just overwhelmingly supportive, and they all echoed the same core idea: being a good human, having a big heart for all creatures, great and small. That is never stupid. It's just a fundamental good.
And a lot of people pointed out a really crucial detail. While the rescuer may not have saved the squirrel in the way they wanted, their compassion made all the difference. Think about it. The alternative for that little guy was a slow, agonizing death in the wild from starvation or a predator. By stepping in, they made sure its suffering ended peacefully.
So the ultimate message from everyone was just one of validation. It was really a plea: please continue to be selfless and unashamed of that kindness, because the real win here wasn't in the outcome, but in the simple, powerful choice to act with an open heart.
And what's truly amazing is that this difficult, heartbreaking experience didn't end in despair. Instead, it actually transformed into this new sense of purpose, a real desire to make a positive impact. When someone in the comments suggested volunteering, the rescuer's response was immediate and just full of enthusiasm. They decided to channel that powerful compassion into organized action, to find a way to help other animals, but within the system. It's such a beautiful pivot from personal pain to collective good.
And that really brings us to the heart of it all, doesn't it? This story of one little squirrel forces us to ask a really big question. When our personal instinct for kindness runs headfirst into these big impersonal policies, how do we decide what truly matters most? Is it the individual life right in front of us, or the health of the ecosystem as a whole? There's definitely no easy answer, but it's a question worth thinking about.